Hello and welcome, Toonsters, to the first ever Toon of a Kind podcast where I sit down with a guest and we talk about new and possibly old cartoons that we enjoy, being two of a kind in the mind that is of cartoons. And today we have our guest, SleepZe, from his YouTube channel SleepZe. Hello and welcome!
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a wonderful good time. If you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know that we've done a couple videos together, Absolver on my channel, and we also did a couple Hat in Time things over on SleepZe's channel, so it was a good, fun time to have him back on the show as well. And today, we'll be discussing the Netflix original series, Hilda. And so how would you describe Hilda to those people who haven't seen it yet, Z?
I would basically say it's a British version of a Studio Ghibli movie.
That's out there, because I would just describe it as kind of like a lighthearted Monster of the Week kind of slice of life show.
That too, but actually, yeah, I would say that too.
But the Studio Ghibli, I'm like, wow, that's high praise. Studio Ghibli's like up there. So for those who haven't had a chance to browse their Netflix account yet for Hilda, which is a lovely animated show for everyone of all ages, it's actually based on a graphic novel by Luke Pearson.
This I know too. I knew this because I watched Frederator's video, 100 and something facts about Hilda.
Oh yeah, I used to watch the 101 facts about all the time. It was always good. You learn a bunch of nuanced stuff, but I did a little bit of research here and looked up a few good things. The first episode, or the series, aired September 21st of last year, 2018. It has a whopping 99% like ratio. That's huge.
Wow.
It's got an 8.8 out of 10 on IMDb, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it 98%. So this show is top tier. When I usually say top tier about a lot of things that probably aren't top tier, because I'm being facetious, but this show literally is top tier. It's also technically British Canadian, which I didn't even know. This is a Canadian show, partly.
What?
Yeah.
Just mind blown.
Because people, when they think about Canadian shows, they think of Johnny Test and its obnoxious whip sound effects. Whoosh, whoosh. I know, it's creepy. But yeah, so it was a little refreshing to look at a show, do a little bit of research before the podcast here, just to bring up sort of a little bit of the background of what Hilda actually is. Because I remember seeing only a couple bits of fan art on Twitter about Hilda, and I'm like, what is this Hilda? Like, what are people talking about Hilda? And I searched it, and it was actually coming out that week. So I didn't really even have all that much time to jump into Hilda before it actually came live on Netflix.
Me, I found it because a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, there's this show called Hilda. I think you'd like it. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I watched it, and I instantly fell in love with it. Binged it with my dad.
I think I actually binged it twice in a row, because I think that weekend I was going to visit my mom, and I'm like, Mom, you'd like this show. It's like a cute little, adorable show. The atmosphere in the show is probably the best thing it's got going for it, the way they switch their color palettes. Because I don't know if they actually use a color overlay or if they actually swap color palettes, but every time they go from like out in the sun to in a cave or nighttime, everything seems to be like they've changed the color palette and not just swapped a color overlay over it.
Right, and the atmosphere itself, it's like just the beautiful like forestry in the first couple episodes, and even in Trollberg in like later episodes, like even the city is like beautiful on itself, like day and night, like usually in a cartoon, like day and night's your typical like one color, but no, like the sky, like if you look closely, it looks like one. It's like one of those Home Depot things, like in the paint section where like
color swatches.
You take it out and it's like, yeah, the color swatches. It's kind of like that, but it's like it doesn't have those annoying white lines on it.
Yeah, they definitely do their.
Pretty to look at.
They definitely mesh their colors well. They'll keep like colors with like colors, and you are right. When they go for certain nighttime aesthetics, it's not always the same color they pick, because they're in different areas at nighttime. Like if they're out in like at the beach or in the forest at nighttime, there's a lot of darker colors that they use. But if they're in like the city, there will also be like a muted colors, because now there's nighttime darkness mixed with like yellow faded lights. So they'll get that cool mix of, it is still nighttime, but all the colors are kind of faded because of the ambient lighting that's around. And so they just do that well. But
Yeah, it's
one thing we didn't touch on just for the beginning of the series is that Hilda is a show about a little girl named Hilda with blue hair who's an adventurer at heart. So she lives out in the wilderness pretty much with her mother, a couple hours away from civilization. And it's just them two. And so Hilda goes from being this adventurous young woman who's basically what I would call an adventurer at heart, because that's what she is. She survived in the wilderness for so long. And then they have to uproot and move to the city. So it's kind of a fish out of water story where this young adventuring girl now has to go from adventuring the wilderness she's become so fond of and familiar with to adventuring in a city which she knows nothing about.
and that's the greatest adventure.
Yeah, one of them anyway, considering she makes friends along the way.
Well,
Frida and David, her wonderful little pals who are of the
yes.
Sparrow Scouts. Not to mention the first friend she makes, aside from her pet Twig, the deer fox, she makes Alpha, the little elf.
I love Alpha. I
I
think
mean, Alpha's
Alpha's one of my
great.
favorite. I know. Not to fray off of the subject. I don't know if this would count as fraying off from the subject or not, but I actually had an opportunity to paint a Hilda-themed mural in a girls' faculty bathroom at my school.
Wow, Hilda themed. Was it actually like after Hilda? Like, was it based on Hilda?
Yeah, what I did was I had like Trollberg, like picture like right in front of you. There's a bathroom, but don't think of it as a girl's bathroom because that's just weird. But just imagine a bathroom, and there's like there's a mirror right in front of you, like on the wall where Hilda stuff. Like there's mountains, and then there's Jorgum, who is a giant, where like he just roamed around the earth for thousands of years. For anyone who doesn't know, the other side, there's some wolves who are weird creatures that are honestly really adorable. And if they were stuffed animals, I would want one.
Yeah, for
And then,
sure.
like,
They're definitely
below,
like flying big. Oh, what are those? There's actually like big spheroid plush animals that they look like, but this one looks like a big fluffy dog.
Right. And then like on the mural, there's also like grass, like where the sinks are. In the grass, there's like Alpha and then Twig. And on like to the right side of it, there's also Trollberg, where I took reference from like the actual like Netflix photo, like when you open Netflix and it like shows you like
Oh yeah. The
picture of it.
the beginning image, the teaser
Yeah.
image, or I forget what they call that, but it's like the
Yeah.
draw-in image, the image to bring you into the show.
Right, and it's just like the blimp in the background, and there's like the dam, the wall.
But I
from
guess that's just a
Trollberg.
testament to how this show is, just because, like I said, the 99% like ratio and the 98% Rotten Tomatoes. So yeah, it's making its rounds. It's getting up there in its notoriety and its popularity. In fact, I believe season 2's already been confirmed. That's how hard this show hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
And I
that
don't
was
want to be
probably
I don't want
way
to be
too
like
loud.
the authority on Hilda because we're doing a Hilda podcast and this one dude said that season 2 was coming, but it's just a rumor I had heard back when I was talking about it with some other people, that they said no, it already has been renewed for another season because it had done so well.
But that's just a theory.
I'm just going to say that take it with a grain of salt. It could be happening. I'm sure you could easily Google it and find the answer for yourself. But what I had seen and heard was that season 2 was on its way, which I'm very excited for.
I mean, I am too. There's like so many possibilities that we can touch up on.
Well, there's also
Should we
the
get into
slight
spoiler-
overarching story that they established as well.
Right. Like, should we get into spoiler territory or no?
I mean, I guess because this is kind of a new-ish show, we could say that from now on there would probably be a high chance of spoilers because we're probably going to be talking about episodes and things. So if you haven't watched Hilda or are just starting out, turning back now might be a good piece of advice for y'all, but if you don't mind, well then there you go. You've had your spoiler warning. I usually only issue spoiler warnings on newer content because if something's been out for a year and you haven't seen it, there's probably a good reason why you haven't. Just to get back on like the actual track of the episodes, the first few episodes set up the series so well by establishing kind of the relationship from the macrocosm to the microcosm kind of deal, because you have Hilda, who's essentially a giant to all the elves because they're miniature people, right? They're tiny. And then
Right.
you also have the giant coming through that she meets in the end, stepping on her house, and that's what triggers them needing to move out of the area. So it's kind of like that cool thing where Hilda didn't quite understand exactly why she couldn't live in harmony, but then something bad happens to her home in the exact same fashion that would happen to the elves' homes. And then she kind of gets that perspective that sometimes things are just bigger than you, and sometimes you're too big for certain things. And I think that's kind of like the best theme they were going for in the first few episodes, because Hilda really needed to learn to grow up about where her home was. And that's actually one of the biggest themes in one of the later episodes.
Right. Like, it's also like family.
I mean, yeah, I
Family is
suppose.
important.
Yeah, which brings to the question, like, where's her dad? Who is her dad? Right? It's never really brought up all that much. But then again, you never see pictures of him anywhere, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
I, for the first time in forever, dwelled onto Reddit.
For the
God
first
help me.
time in forever. That's
Right.
right, I'm going to do
And
it.
I read a Reddit post, and it suggested, what if Hilda is a witch, and or not exactly her being a witch, but also what if her father, supposed father, is also a witch?
But
But
but she is a witch. That's established in the later series, or in the later episodes of the series.
true, but I mean, actually, yeah, could be. You
I
could be
mean,
right.
I mean, they literally have a thing where Frida and Hilda are sitting in that secret part of the library, and she goes, "Oh, great! Where are we going to find a witch? We'll never get this done." And she's like, Hilda, you are the
Hilda, you
witch.
are the witch.
Exactly, you are the witch." And that's where it kind of springs. And she's like, "Oh, I guess so. It's because, well, you cast the spell." Now, that could be maybe anyone can be a witch. Maybe it's just the magic of the ingredients and the spells. But we'll get into the librarian later, because I want to have a whole talk about the librarian later.
I
Yeah, because
know.
she's
I
her
think the
own thing.
librarians might.
But
Right.
let's get back to the characters mainly. So, one of my questions I have written down here is, who's your favorite character in the series, which you already mentioned was Alpha, I believe.
Yes, I just love how charismatic he is about, like, just elf culture and stuff like that, and just contracts.
Oh yeah, for those of you who haven't quite watched Hilda yet, the elves are super into contracts. They love their contracts. In fact, one of the overarching story plots for the elves in general is that Alpha is sent to Trollberg with Hilda, so that way he can take documentation on the cities, so that way they can take the paperwork back, because elves love paperwork and contracts. And in the city, there's a lost clan of the Northern Lands, and the whole thing revolves around them finishing a contract that they'd established like hundreds of years ago or something. So like it's all like elves are just about contracts. In fact, you can't even see the elves unless you sign an agreement.
I would absolutely sign that agreement in a heartbeat.
I mean, their writing is so tiny though, so I'd probably have them dictate it
Oh,
to me first.
right. I need a forger, an elf forger for me.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, Alpha is a very charming character, and he is kind of like this stuck-up character in the series, kind of. And I say that because it's only because he's so into the paperwork and contracts, but he still makes sure that his friends come first. He's never that person who's like, well, I'm not going to do anything because it's not in the contract. He only ever advises that you have a contract. He'll still do things to save his friends or to go out and adventure with his friends. So he's never a stick in the mud type of character. He's got his morals, but that never stops him from interacting with the other characters or going on the adventures.
Right, and I love his interaction between isn't wait, should we call him the Crow, the Great Raven?
His name's Raven. They call him by Raven. So
Okay, that I kind of forgot. I mean, it's been a day, and I have the memory of a goldfish, so excuse me.
yeah,
So I just love like interactions between Alpha and literally anyone, because like, especially with Hilda, because when Hilda was trying to help Frida get a certain book back in later episodes, Alpha's like, you should always have a contract on you. You could. There's always like details on like on proper faults, and you can choose to decline. Stuff like that.
yeah. He was talking about having proper clauses in if you can't fulfill a promise, therefore alleviating you from any guilt or responsibility for not being able to fulfill the promise. And it's like, well, that's not the point, Alpha. It's not about the contract alleviating you of your guilt. It's about the fact that you should always try and fulfill your promise no matter what. and that was kind of the big disconnect from elf culture and human culture that we saw in those few episodes, was that elves view a promise more as a written agreement rather than like your word as a value to hold.
Right. It's like, and it's also like brings us back to like the other elves, like the hidden elf kingdom near the Trollberg Wall. It's like they downright hate contracts, all because of what happened hundreds of years ago, with like the disagreement on the contract, or like they didn't sign more than three times. It was like an incomplete contract,
Yeah, because they didn't
and
sign
they
in
just
triplicate or something. Now the contract's incomplete, and all they need is a signature. But the lost clans just were like, we're never signing another contract again because he ruined our lives. And so that's the values that they hold now, which is a little bit different from elf culture. But it was also fun to see them be a little bit more feral and such.
right, and it's like it would be like if season two were to happen, like it would be interesting to see like more elves. Like I'm not saying, like, disclaimer, this isn't gonna be like predictions or anything. It's just like, hey, it would be nice to see that. I don't expect it to happen, but it would be nice. Like other elves, like who also like differentiate from the elves we know, because as far as we know, the two elf kinds we know are the ones who love combat and the others who like contracts. And it would
Yeah, they
be
do love
interesting to see,
combat.
like,
Yeah.
but it would be like interesting to see, hey, maybe there's elves that don't care for either, like just not human elves, but like humane elves.
Yeah, or
Like
maybe
just
there's elves who pride themselves more on bartering with goods. So, like, if you want to do something for somebody, you have to give them something or pay them in some regard. There's definitely a lot that you could do with
right,
that sort of dynamic of elves having this kind of high standard for their moral code. I mean, elves have always, in a lot of folklore, have always had like a high standard for their moral codes, like very uppity as a race. And so it would be nice to see definitely different races of, or different factions of elves come into play. That's for sure.
right, and it shows how creative like the creator can be too, because like usually repetitiveness throughout the show. Might I add, the show is not repetitive at all.
Oh
Like you
no, no, it's
said
fresh
earlier,
throughout the whole
it is
season.
like exactly like you did say it was like monster of the week sort of thing, but it's never really repetitive to a point where it's like, oh, well, this is gonna happen, this problem's gonna get solved. Because no, it like throughout like the whole course of the season, like a problem happens, it could get solved, it could not be solved, or it could get solved and like there's still like conflict.
Yeah, or
Like
even partially
in the
solved.
episode,
Because I believe in the episode
yeah,
with the Mara, that didn't get solved. They just stopped the one. But in a later episode, you find out that there's
right,
actually a coven of Mara in the city, all made up of teenage girls.
exactly. Right, like you just solved one person's problem. Like the Mara could be out there terrorizing like other kids or
Well, there are,
people,
because there's,
and
like I said, there's a coven of them, and they're telling stories about how they're terrorizing these children and causing them nightmares. So yeah, you stopped one, but there's still the coven out there.
right, and that's another thing I want to talk about with like the Mara, because what kind of
Well, hold on before
interests
we get
me
into the
is
Mara,
like
because that's going to be a discussion on when we get through a couple more episodes. But just to get back onto the favorite character thing, because we've been talking
right,
about Alpha so much, I actually have a couple favorite characters, and none of them are predominant in any of the episodes. I actually really enjoy Raven, which is the Thunderbird. He is a Thunderbird, but
yes,
the people of Trollberg think of him as the Great Raven because one time he showed up and then he made a decision to just keep showing up because the humans felt like it was a big deal. So he's like, oh, well, I'll just show up for them because, they seem to need me. Because the one time he didn't show up, everything went terrible for them. So now he's a little scared and like guilty, feeling guilt about not showing up again. So that's just one of my favorite side characters is the Raven. And then there is the librarian. And the only reason I love the
yes,
librarian is because there's so much mystery around her. Because every time they go to the library to look for something, she always has the answer, and I want to know why. She's probably the biggest mystery in the show right now, in terms of how does she know what they're looking for? Like, she even knows every grave label in the cemetery.
Well, you get bored sometimes working in the
And
library.
and she's also a witch, by the way. It's Loki. I mean, I'm not just saying that because she's got like black and purple hair and wears like a cloak and is terribly a witch, but she also has like hidden books about witchcraft, hidden items about witchcraft, knows stuff about ghosts and graves and the supernatural. She's a witch. Like she's
Well,
probably
she seems. No, sorry. You first.
I was going to say she's probably going to have to teach Hilda how to do something in the upcoming seasons if that because I haven't read the graphic novel. So, but she's probably going to have to teach Hilda something in the upcoming seasons because she's just too mysterious to just be like a gimmick. She's too mysterious to just be a gimmick. There has to be something intrinsically tied in with her throughout the plot. Or maybe she's just like that one character who's like the man in the chair, right? Who's they go to the library whenever they need answers and the librarian's got the answers.
Right. Like I was gonna say where it was like maybe she seems like really chill with like giving Hilda all this information. But I was thinking like, oh, maybe if Hilda is like very interested in like these ghosts, these like uh crap, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Supernatural beings.
Yeah, yeah, supernatural beings, like all this supernatural stuff. Like just, she would probably be like, "Oh, maybe I can teach you a thing or two." Like help her like
Yep.
become a witch, but of course not in a bad way or maybe of course we don't know that because she's just so mysterious and plus that library is just so awesome.
Yeah, it's so old.
Like
Yeah, for sure. But the way
I
she
know,
has her
pardon me.
cadence, though, the way she carries herself and her cadence and the fact she's a librarian, I don't think she's good or evil. I think she's what is true neutral. Because even, like you said, she might have to teach Hilda something and she doesn't really care about Hilda learning all of this witchcraft. In the episode where they have to go to the graveyard to literally raise the dead in order to try and find a book, she asks Hilda, well, is raising the dead for something important? And Hilda goes, very important. And she goes, oh, okay, then have fun with it. Like, just nonchalantly chill, like, oh, yeah, okay, then have fun with it. Like, yeah, just letting a, like, 9-year-old child go and resurrect the dead is just for funsies. Like,
It's what every 9-year-old would do.
oh, yeah, of course. Just get a magic flute, whatever. Go get some
Yeah.
grave frost on you, whatever.
What, you didn't do that when you were 9 years old?
Man,
What
I
childhood
live
did you
next to a
have?
graveyard. I'm still doing that in my 30s, even though I'm not 30 yet. I'm still doing that in my 90s.
Oh, wow.
And I'll be doing it long after I'm dead, but
Ah, rave puns.
Ugh, yep. They'll send you
Only
to
on
an
this
early one.
podcast.
All right, enough with the terrible puns. But yeah, so those were my two favorite characters were the Great Raven and the mysterious librarian. Just because I like the way the Great Raven is, he's just like a big. When you get introduced to him, he has amnesia, and Hilda kind of has to figure out the mystery of him. And we were talking about the Monster of the Week earlier, and usually Monster of the Week shows aren't too samey. Like you know that they're going to deal with the Monster of the Week and things are going to go somewhat back to normal. But the monsters of the week in this show are so compelling and interesting just based off of that. It keeps you in the show. It really does. It gives enough flavor and variety. And one of the best parts is I believe that most of these creatures are based off of real folklore.
Yes, they are. They're based on Norwegian folklore. I did my own research myself.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I also looked it up the other day. I just couldn't remember what region it was. I didn't want to say Scandinavian again because I could be completely wrong. But like having like world giants and hill giants and Mara and the they weren't Mandragora. What were the little root guys? The vegetable dudes who were
Vetras.
Vetras. That's right. Yeah, I always thought they were Mandragoras for some reason. I'm like, no, they're not Mandragoras. They're not shrieking. But they're kind of similar to a Mandragora. They're a being that they're like a plant being that lives underground, and if you uproot them, they start causing shenanigans. Mandragoras are a bit different, but which actually perfectly leads into the next question I have here, which is, what was your favorite monster of all the episodes?
I really liked the lintworm simply because, like, I don't know, it just not only was like the leading up to the lintworm, like with the water spirit and stuff like that,
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
leading towards the island, but it's just it was just like the setting where the lintworm is just really beautiful because it kind of reminded me of when I stumbled upon not necessarily a Garden of Eden like that, but no, like I fell down a hill once when me and my cousin and my brother were like hiking, and I fell down a hill. Now it wasn't like a giant hill where I could like break my neck or anything. It was like a small sloped hill, and there was like a little hill where I could have climbed up, but I didn't because I noticed there was like a patch of like dandelions right there, and it was like, oh, that's kind of nice
Dandelions,
for like a
the most
9-year-old me.
beautiful of weed.
Right, right. I mean, of course, I was like 9 years old. I knew jack about flowers, and I'm like, oh, pretty flower. But I just really like the setting of the lintworm, and plus the lintworm itself. It was like
Oh,
really,
it was a great
really
character,
cool.
for sure.
Right,
I mean, within
and
the
I just
first
loved
like
how
5 minutes of meeting it, you got its entire character development. Like people, Hilda and Frida showed up with Alpha to or was it with Alpha or without Alpha? I think Alpha.
it was with
Okay,
Alpha.
Alpha was there. So they show up to get the Lintworm to incinerate the contract because that's one of the only ways to get out of a contract with elves. And so the Lintworm is upset because the only time anyone ever comes to visit her is when they have an elven contract to burn. So immediately you have established history with the elves, like their whole character kind of mood gets set because it's like, oh great, I'm just being used as a tool again, like yada yada, who goes there
Right.
kind of deal. And it really does sort of instantly give that character sort of a relatability, right? Because it's like, oh well, I have all these skills. Like the Lintworm even has a garden of a bunch of different exotic flowers there. But what it doesn't have is common weeds from inside of an urban area because it can't go into town because it's a monster.
And plus, it has social anxiety.
That too, it also has social anxiety. So it's just like the town is too big for it to go in. So there's like a double whammy there, which is probably like, well, it's a monster. And if it goes into town, people will probably try and, maybe hurt it or harm it. And then also, because of that, it's also got social anxiety. So it's like, oh, well, who knows which one came first?
Right.
Did the fact that people were just being giant buttholes to it cause the anxiety? Or, did the anxiety exacerbate the whole effect? But it was also just nice to have like, it's just like, well, I can't go into town. Like I would love to have your common weeds.
But I can't. I'm too scared.
It's always just so busy and bustly and there's people around in town. It's like so it kind of just sort of plays up that sort of, without making the Lintworm feel like oh, poor Lintworm, you're a victim. It doesn't downplay the Lintworm's character by making them a victim. It just makes them, a person of circumstance at that point, right? Like, oh, well, these humans
Right.
brought me these things. Well, if you trade me those, I'll be happy to give you a service, right? Instead of just giving out a service for free, if you do me a kindness, I'll do you a kindness. So it becomes more of like a mutual opportunity for both parties, which was nice.
Right. Plus, I won't eat you.
Yes, plus the Lintworm won't eat them, which is always the best one. Right, but let's see, what monsters did they have in the show in total? Because the Wafts, I mean, they're big floaty things. They are technically monsters. Let's see, there's Wafts, there's the world giants, or the giants of old, the old giants. Then there's the forest giants. There's the Woodman, who is another mysterious creature who just pops around every now and then. The Woodman, he seems to be a little standoffish and a little gruff, but he knows more than he lets on.
And he's quite rude.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's a little rough around the edges. But his bark is worse than his bite.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, the Woodman. He's literally like a Deku scrub. If anybody's familiar with The Legend of Zelda, he kind of looks like a Deku scrub, right? He's that kind of.
Yeah, he reminded me of that a lot too.
Yeah, he's definitely that kind of folklore monster where he's like a living tree kind of thing, but not like a treant from Lord of the Rings where he's huge. He's like a tiny little man. Let's see. There's also the elves. There is the Mara. They are technically a monster.
There's Twig, the deer fox.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're not quite sure exactly if that's a monster or if that's just an animal. But, because remember, there are weird, there's also water elementals. Those are a type of monster as well.
True.
The Lintworm. The Rat King.
Yes.
The Rat King isn't a monster.
Oh, yes.
But the Rat King is actually real. There are only a few documented circumstances of Rat Kings being created in history. This is when rats' tails get tied together so badly that they become a huge writhing mass.
Wow.
And there are stories of people just cracking open walls and just a mass of rats pouring out but not scattering because their tails are all intertwined. Because I think what happens was as soon as a couple of them get their tails intertwined, they'll start trying to like climb over each other and like panic and get out. And as more rats try to come in, it sort of entangles them more. And so you get that big thing. But in Hilda, the Rat King is a trader of secrets. So he always wants people to come down and trade a secret with him. If you give him a secret, he'll give you a secret.
Sounds like fun.
Oh yeah, it sounds great with all the like 100 voices talking to you at the same time. But it was a very it was a very creepy monster, but also it had a like kind of a charming voice. Like it wasn't necessarily evil.
Right.
It was more of like probably like a chaotic neutral type of character. Like it wouldn't actively hurt you, but it also has some sort of sinister aura about it.
Right. Like most rats in general. Actually, no. Can't say that about all rats.
Some pet rats are absolutely adorable and just love affection. I've met many pet rats that were just great. But who else do we have? We have the Vetra, who are the Roots. We also had the what was it? The Black Dog or the Black Hound?
Jelly Bean.
Jelly Bean. What that was the name of the Black Hound, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Black Hound is actually. I think that's multicultural, right? The Black Hound being a large black dog that comes to take people away and eat them whole. That's kind of a very like multicultural, multi-background sort of monster.
There was also, I forgot what, like, the one where like they're going through like walls.
The Nyssa.
And there's like little pocket dimensions. The what?
The Nyssa.
Nyssa, yeah, that's what
it's the same episode. Yeah, the Nyssa. They're kind of like little house spirits. They kind of look like little house gnomes, kind of, and they're very territorial, and there's only one Nyssa per home. And so in this episode, Hilda tries to go and help the Nyssa by finding it a new home or giving it her home, but then they find out that the Nyssa are actually tied to the Black Hound, and the Black Hound, which is actually a Barghest, a giant black dog. And so it turns out that one of the Nyssa used to own the Barghest, the Black Hound. Jellybean is its name. And so they get reunited, and then they go into the pocket dimension in the outside. Now, Nyssa, what they do is there's a room inside of everyone's home that's made up of all of the unused space. So, like, space behind desks or dressers or at the top of, like, cupboards that you can't see. That's all unused space, which manifests itself as a weird pocket dimension room in your home. The Nyssa can enter this pocket room and live there. Sometimes, if you leave things out, the Nyssa will take them because they think it's an offering or as a job well done kind of thing. But they're usually peaceful house spirits. And so this one Nyssa found the Barghest, the Black Hound, as a puppy and took it in. But once it started getting too big, the Nyssa's parents kicked it out, and then it went off and vanished. And then it came back as the Black Hound looking for its owner again. And so one of the things they established in the episode was that if you try and go into the unused space outside, it's kind of like going into outer space for us as humans. You will probably never find your way back. If you were to just teleport into an unknown location in outer space, you're probably not going to be coming back.
Luckily for our heroes, they did find their way back.
Yeah, they teleported out and back in quite quickly because they were about to hit the wall of Trollberg on the outside because they were fleeing.
Right.
So yeah, that was just a good thing. So there's a lot of very different monsters. Oh, and the tide mice. The tide mice and the ghosts were also the other two big monsters of the series, I believe. The tide mice were cute. That was more of that witchcraft episode we were talking about earlier where Hilda does magic on her friends to make their lives better, but what she doesn't realize is that it's literally a soul-sucking enchantment she's putting on people, rather than being just a straight-up helpful one.
That's one way to keep your friends forever.
Yeah, by making them soulless husks forever.
Keeping their souls with you by your side.
But yeah, so it's just got a lot of good monsters, and I'm very partial to monsters, as you might know from... Oh my god, it's not like my mascot's a monster or anything. What? But, yeah, so my favorite monster of the series...
We left out the biggest monsters. We left out the trolls.
Oh, right, the trolls. I forgot about the trolls. There was a whole episode about the baby troll rock, too. Yeah, so trolls in this universe, during the day, they're solid rock, and during night, they're active. They're generally not too menacing. They seem to mind their own business unless provoked, so they're a little odd, but they're a little ornery. But yeah, they're basically just like rock trolls, and they go around and do their own thing, and if people sort of mess with them, they'll go ahead and bop them something real good. I just noticed that my voice connected thing dropped down, and I don't know why.
I was like, I noticed that too, and I'm thinking, wait, am I lagging?
Yeah, is that us? Is that
Shouldn't be
lagging? Yeah, so you people at home won't be able to see, but we're talking over Discord, and I saw the voice connected bar go from green to red, and I'm like, that should not be happening. But yeah, so the rock trolls are just essentially kind of regular trolls. They're pretty neutral. They're more likely to be... They're territorial, kind of, so it's best to not bug them, but they're very ornery as a type.
And they're also misunderstood, because like the town of Trollberg sees them as this dastardly threat that must be kept out. We have to build a wall to keep
Literally,
the trolls
yeah.
out.
Gotta build a wall to keep the trolls out. It seems seems a little topical on what's the political climate right now, but we won't touch that. We'll just go, it seems topical for the times.
Not
At the time of the recording of this, anyway.
Right.
Right. So, but yeah, my favorite monster of the series probably has to be the Mara. Just because I'm always fascinated with creatures that can blend perfectly into human society, but then also have, like, dream powers. So, the Mara are, we mentioned them earlier, the coven of the teenage girls who enter the dreams of young kids to give them nightmares, to go out into the woods at night to tell each other the stories about how they terrorize the kids, and from there they gain some sort of mystical energy from it. At one point in the series, Hilda's friend Frida actually goes to join them, and she actually does get some of the energy put into her body, which might come in later, because it seems that that shouldn't have been a thing that would happen without consequence, right? Usually when a human being messes with magic like that, it taints them in some fashion.
Right, and what I thought, and this is what kind of irked me a little bit, because for those of you like cartoon nerds out there, like, not to get like it's not really off topic, but like some people like take this kind of stuff out of context, and they're like, oh, this is like symbolism for like drug use, stuff like that, and it's like, no, it's not. It's just a show. Like, just enjoy it for what it is. But other than that, what I saw was like, I thought like maybe since she's like, just a kid, like she's rejecting it because like she's not ready. And maybe like one of these days, like if she were to like, I don't know, become a teenager, and of course this might not happen in season 2, who knows? But like we see that since it's just teenagers being Maras, like
Teenage
Frida,
girls specifically.
she can't be a Mara. Yeah, teenage girls to be specific.
Because they all have cooties, as we all know.
Yeah, everyone knows girls have cooties.
It's true.
Ew. But like,
I mean, I got my circle, dot, dot. I don't know about any of y'all, but I think you should get your cootie shot. Help protect you from Mara.
I have my fingers crossed. Thank you very much.
Although, I'm just going to say, if you have teenage girls sneaking into your room in the middle of the night, you have more issues. You're going to have a lot more issues than you think about.
You have more than Mara problems, my friend.
Oh, yeah, that's FBI. 2 things I don't condone. Mara, and then getting chased by the FBI. Don't just... Be nice. Don't commit crimes.
FBI, open up!
Pretty much. So yeah, it's just the Mara were that kind of very interesting thing, and it also gave you like a nice peek at Hilda's character as well, because you got to go into her dream, and like everything that would scare a normal kid doesn't scare Hilda because she's already seen the worst that the world has to offer. Literal giant monsters that could destroy you.
Right.
Like fires, being lost in the wilderness, giant monsters, like enemies and snakes and like all these things. But the thing she was most afraid of was riding a bike.
Dun, dun,
yeah, so it's the complete mundane. She's never had to learn how to ride a bike or interact socially, which is weird because even though she hasn't really needed to interact socially with a lot of other kids, she seemed to just walk up and be like, "Hi, I'm new in town. Would you mind being friends?" And I'm like, that's like a nice direct point to get new friends. Like, we make making friends so much difficult for us when we get older. Like, kids are just like, hey, you want to be friends? And bam, you're friends. Like, it's not that simple when you're kids, but it's very close to that simple when you're kids, because you you don't have all these prejudices against other people for being hurt by other people yet, because you haven't had many friends yet. So it's that kind of nice thing where you get to see a character that walks up and goes, "Hi, I'm new. Would you like to be friends?" And they go, "Yeah, okay." Turns out those kids were dirtbags, but
Right.
you can't know that until you get to
Yes.
know people. But I just kind of felt like,
Right.
why can't it be that easy when we're adults? And it's because, for whatever reason, we see that nugget of openness and honesty to be creepy when we're adults, for some reason. Like, if you were to walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, like, I think you're pretty cool. You want to be friends?" People would be like, "What's wrong with you? Why, like, you're a creep." And I don't understand
Right.
that, because like, as a society, we're always trying to tell people to be more open and more honest and just communicate how you're feeling. But then when you do, you're a creep. I just don't get it. So that was kind of like the reason why I liked the episode with the Mara in it, just because it sort of gave you that nice thing, like, there's more in this city than you know. Like the fact that there's a band of teenage girls, a coven. I'm going to keep calling them a coven because I don't know what a group of Mara is called. In fact, I have the power of the internet. What's a group of Mara called? Let's see if I even spelled it right.
It's Mara. I
Let's
think
see.
there's an E. I think.
I thought it was double R. Either way. So yeah, it's just that kind of. Let's put in folklore there. No, it's not coming up. I'm not getting anything. It's all bringing up like mare, like what's a mare. So I'm not gonna try. But oh well. For those of you at
What
home,
is a Hilda?
here's our question of the day. Then, question of the day: if you can find it, what is a group of Mara called? There you go.
Put it in the comments down
Yeah,
below.
for sure. Put it in the comments down below. And also feel free to answer any of the other questions that we've asked today. I mean, if who's your favorite character? What's your favorite monster? Even what's your favorite location in the series? Because they've been to a bunch of different places. Inside a giant's ear. They were inside a giant's ear.
Gross.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clean in there, actually. It's a bit of snow, but I've seen some dirtier ears.
I have dirtier ears.
But yeah, so it's just the fact that that whole, like, Coven of Mara can exist in a society and no one knows, because the wall has been made so far out of the town to allow for expansion that there is, like, forests and such to protect them or to give them extra room for expansion and to have, like, a little bit of wilderness in the city. So, like, who knows what other things we'll see if there is a season 2. And I'm looking forward to that. But I'm also looking forward to the fact that they've planted a few things in the series, like tiny things, but if you're paying attention, you'll notice them, that might come back in later seasons. I'm really hoping they do that because I want the writing to be that good.
Right. We didn't touch up on the sky spirits.
Oh, right,
would
yeah,
they count as
the sky
monsters?
spirits. Well, yeah, I guess they would, because we have the other spirits that count as monsters. So I completely forgot about the episode where she actually goes. Well, there's also a mad scientist. A mad scientist in the series, too.
Victoria von whatever.
Yeah, Victoria. And she basically
just
creates
Victoria.
a weather dominator, a weather controlling unit, by capturing a baby sky spirit, which creates a bunch of radical weather around the town of Trollberg, and Hilda goes up to the Meteorological Society in order to see what's going on. And it turns out that she has to go be a moderator for the sky spirits, and that goes awry when the last one to leave is like, "I came here for something, what was it?" And then it remembers that they stole its baby. And that's the whole reason why the mad scientist could even control the weather in the first place.
And plus, after that, I thought that was a really great episode. Not only
was.
just because like the Raven, and also the absence of Freda, because of like the whole side plot of Freda being absent because like, wasn't it? No, wait, yeah, it was because like she felt so insecure of herself because she wants to be perfect, and she's afraid of like her parents not seeing that she's perfect.
Yeah,
and that's what I really
because,
liked about these.
she was going on adventures with Hilda, and every time they go, like, it doesn't always work out. Like, that was one of the big points that Frida brought up, was sometimes they go on adventures and then nothing good happens. And so
Right.
they don't always win. Like, sometimes it's like an even break. There's no win, there's no loss. It's just a draw. And so Frida was getting upset that they're always being put in danger and nothing, they don't always win. And so she was frustrated by that, and the fact that she lost the ghost who was cleaning her room because the Nyssa in her home took the book.
Right.
Yeah, that little punk just came out of under the bed, took the book, and then the ghost would clean her room every night. And so she thought rooms cleaned themselves, which is one of the funniest things. And so, yeah, and so then I guess they had a little schism there between friends, but
Right.
it sort of came back after a few episodes. And a lot of times what shows will do is they'll have like the schism episode, but in the end they'll come back together. But no, this lasted for a few things. And even David was,
Right.
going on adventures being like, "Well, what about Frida?" And there was a time at a point where you thought maybe Hilda would lose both of her friends because David didn't want to always go on spooky adventures, and he was only doing it because Frida, which was his best friend, was going on them, and he wanted to be with Frida and learn more about Hilda and stuff. But now that that was gone, David was also leaving too. So there was that turning point where Hilda had to make a decision.
Right. And what I really liked about that was it was like, it like this friendship could just end. And of course it didn't truly end, but it wasn't all happily ever after. Like still there's a little bit of conflict. Yet, it's like it can happen. It's normal too. Like
Well, yeah, it's very normal in any relationship to have some conflicts. No two people are so perfectly cohesive that they can coexist without a single bump in the road. If you could, then it would be very easy to have
What are
nations. Well, it would be very easy to have nations of the planet and just have people who think exactly alike and then let no one else come into your nation unless they think exactly alike, and that's it. It would be very easy for all of humanity to get along because no one would have to worry about anybody else but the people who think like just like them. But that would also mean it would be a very lonely and sad place because you wouldn't have other people coming in with their different opinions or their different hobbies or anything else. It would be like any episode where everybody gets transformed into liking the same things, right? In Fairly Odd Parents.
I like this coffee.
Yeah, in Fairly
I
Odd
like
Parents,
it
there's the one
too.
episode where Timmy Turner wishes everybody was the exact same, and so everybody turns into gray blobs. But even his neighbors were still the grayest and the blobbiest of everyone, even though they were all the exact same. So it's just right. It just
I
goes to
don't remember
show.
this one.
Yeah, it's a great show. I'll put it on the list for Tune of a Kind later on when I get into retro shows. But yeah, so it's just that kind of thing where it's just like you can't make everyone the same, and so there's going to be conflict, and they do have that conflict, and they kind of go about it in a slightly adult way by them just being like, I still care about you. You're still my friend. Like, I'm not just going to abandon you. Like, just because we had a small
Right.
fight. And it doesn't get completely better until, like, the last episode or two. But it's still there.
Right.
Like, it's still ever present, almost.
Right. Like it's like real life, mental disorders like depression, anxiety. Of course, it's not exactly like depression or anxiety. Well, I mean, it could be like anxiety,
Well, I mean,
but
they touched
it's
on
more
anxiety, but I don't think. I mean, they sort of have shown characters who might be, like going through a small depression, and by depression I mean like a small sad state because things aren't going their way and they're trying. Right, that's not actually being afflicted with clinical depression. They're just going through like an unfortunate period. Like Hilda's mom was getting a little
Right.
distraught because she had to take up a Joe job because her designer job wasn't paying anymore once they moved to Trollberg, and I wanted to know, how did she have a job out in the middle of nowhere? Like, how did they have internet? Like, how are they funding themselves?
Well, I don't think internet would be a problem for Hilda. She'd be like, "What's the internet?"
What's this magical glowing box? What do you mean it's called a phone? But no, they never have that kind of weird. Hilda's up and up on what computers and stuff are, so it doesn't matter. But they also do have. They add in like a diverse background cast of characters as well, without you even like knowing it. Like I
Right.
noticed it on my second watch through the series, and I was like, oh, I didn't even notice the first time through. But in their camp troop, they actually have some characters who are of some Middle Eastern descent where they have to wear a headpiece. And they're a brother and sister. The brother doesn't have to wear a headpiece, but the young girl does have to wear, I believe it's a hijab. Don't quote me on that. I'm not up on my headpiece knowledge, so I'm going to call them headpieces because I don't know. And so, yeah, they're actually just a brother and sister, and I didn't notice that they had added those characters in at all until my second watch through. They just existed in the world. They didn't make a big deal that they were there. They were just there. And that's kind of a thing that I like to look for in new shows is how do they add in their characters to add in diversity without smashing you over the head with it? And
Right.
that's
It's
one of the
not
ways.
forced.
Yeah, it's not forced, right? Because I get it. We all want to have diversity and see these people in shows, because I also want to see people in shows, because as we have advanced from the feudal ages of what we once were to having literally, only white people or only black people or only Asian people in our groups and in our cities, there will be different people around, and it's nice to see, even if they are just in the background or even if they have just a few lines in an episode, to see that they do exist. And they don't have to exist prominently just because they do exist in real life. But another touch of that was those little children's parents are actually in the episode of the Nyssa when they're going knocking door to door. You see their mom open the door. So it's like another little notch, like they're still in the same neighborhood, like they still exist, they're around, and they're present, and they're here. And I thought that was great. Like, I thought it was just a nice, wonderful little addition to kind of flush out the world. Like, oh, we saw those kids earlier. Oh, and now we saw their mom in the background the next episode or two. To kind of make it like a cohesive world, right? The world building in the show is great.
Well, yeah.
And we haven't even really talked about the art style yet. I mean, which was
what are we like?
Right, which was going to be the next
50 minutes in?
Yeah, what are we? 50 minutes in? Yeah, 52 minutes in, and we just getting on the art style now. Right, but the favorite aspect of the show for me is the art style. Just we touched on it a little bit when we opened up.
Agree.
Is just the way they change the color palettes and the way their characters are, the line work and everything. It feels like a cartoon should feel. Like when I watch that show, it's like somebody at a table drew these out and then made a flip book out of it almost. I mean, it doesn't look that jittery, but I'm just saying it looks like a drawing. It looks like a real drawing that someone would draw with a pen and a pencil and paper.
Exactly. And it's like, it's recognizable too. It's like you can put Twig on a mug and it's like, hey, that's from Hilda.
Yeah, and I think it really does help that it sort of deviated from some of the way that, I don't want to call it the Cartoon Network or the CalArts style, because those are like becoming derogatory terms for artists now, but it sort of did deviate from current trends in cartooning, right? Just by having those, I don't want to call them pastel colors, but just out of my artistic ignorance, I'm going to call them those pastel colors, the softer colors, while still being vibrant. Like some of the new shows now have like blaring, colorful, huge in-your-face colors. Take like Adventure Time or Gumball right. or Star vs. the Forces of Evil. And don't get me wrong, I love those shows because they're colorful, but Hilda does color in a way where it's not like that commercial where that one lady's like, this is your brain on color, and smashes the egg. Right? It's not like that. Like, the colors are beautiful and present, but they never feel like they're washing you out of the show.
Right. And my music appreciation teacher told me, like, of course, this really has nothing to do with the show, but it's like a good like analogy. She's like, you can use these music terms with anything. Like she said that you can describe how like sound feels or stuff like that. And to me, I use those terms like the backgrounds, like the characters, the colors itself. It just like the forest, like the nature scenery, it just feels homely and welcoming. Like I want to live there.
Comfy.
I want to comfy. Like I just like it's just a dream of mine to just live out in the middle of nowhere, become one with nature.
That was a monster
just
we missed.
Have all the books in the world.
We missed the cabin.
The cabin. Yeah.
I'm going to call it the cabin of desire, because it would give you anything you would ask for. And all it wanted you to do was stay inside the cabin, which probably would like siphon your life force or something evil. But there was a cabin in the show where Woodman and Hilda get stuck in and they can't escape. And the way to get rid of it is by overloading its magical energy. And then Hilda says, the only thing I want is to be able to go home. And it takes her to her small house in Trollberg, not where her house was out in the wilderness. And that's the episode where Hilda learns that her home isn't out in the wilderness anymore. Her home is wherever she's set down her roots, right? Where her family, where her friends are. The things she cares about dictate what her home is. And that's when she learns that big lesson, is that she doesn't have to be in the wilderness to be at home.
Right. Home's where the heart is, as
Pretty
cheesy as
much,
that
yeah,
sounds.
exactly, right? Because it's true. If you can find a place to which you enjoy and love, that's where your home is going to be. Regardless if that's a person or a place or even a thing, that's where your home is going to be. Some people, their home is within themselves and they can be anywhere and still be happy. They can travel the world. They can live in their car. They can live in their car and travel the world, right? So
They
it's,
can live in a van down by the
yeah,
river.
live in a van down by the river. It's one of my best ones. I would scream, but I'd peak the mic so terribly hard.
Sorry, had to get the SNL
Oh, and I
reference
got it.
in there
Yeah, Chris
somewhere.
Farley. I love that guy. He's great. But yeah, and so
Yeah.
yeah, the show, because of its, and the theme song too. Just that's a bopping theme song. The theme song is basically what you want in a show like Hilda. It's kind of cozy. It's upbeat. It's light, but it's also kind of weird and mysterious.
Right. And plus the intro itself, like it just shows you like, hey, you're getting into this, but it's not like um what's a good it's not like Unikitty. I don't know if you've watched
I
Unikitty
haven't
yet.
watched Unikitty yet because I know I probably wouldn't enjoy the color unicorn vomit all in my eye holes. It's just there's some shows you
Well,
look at and you go, I don't think I would enjoy this. I mean, I kind of thought that about Gumball at first. I'm like, that looks a little weird. I might not enjoy that, but I gave it a shot. But Unikitty's one of those things where it's like a firm, hard foot down. No, no, thank you.
yeah, whatever boat you float, but with the intro there, it's more like it's like, hey, you're gonna get into this, and it's like bam 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 bam. It's just too crazy. I'm not a huge fan of the intro, but the show itself, it is
Yeah,
pretty funny. It's pretty good.
yeah. So the whole,
But like I said, whatever boats afloat.
yeah, and the whole feeling of Hilda's theme intro is it's it encapsulates that kind of feeling where it's like you're going to go on an adventure and it's going to be weird and it's going to be something you're not used to, because even at the end where it trails off with like that, that ba-na-na-na or whatever it is at the end, and it kind of like tinkles away, like because it actually makes that like tinkling noise as it fades out, it gets you and it's like, what is this mystical world? And as Hilda's running through the opening theme, you get to see like all the different color palettes, and as she jumps through them, like she changes color with them to match the same palette. And that's awesome because it shows you the kind of like moods and feelings you're going to get in with the show. So right out of the gate, the show just opens up with, this is what you're in for. I hope you like it. By the way, you already like it. Prepare for the ride.
And if you don't, get out.
And if you don't, you're on Netflix. Just press B. Just no. Press circle, press B, press whatever's on your Xbox or PlayStation controller. Or if you're watching on Wii U, shout outs to everybody who uses their Wii U as a Netflix machine.
Just
That's me
give
right
them a
there.
round of
Every
applause
night,
for that
I got my
right there.
little game tablet right next to my bed on my nightstand because it's a nice tiny little display. It's nice and quiet. It's perfect. It's the perfect little thing.
Funny enough, my gamepad's right in front of me.
Yeah, just shout outs to Wii U owners in general. Thank you for supporting probably the best console no one ever bought.
I bought it.
But yeah, so it's just that kind of the overarching feeling of having these comfy colors and this comfy tone to Hilda. It's magical in a way, and it is. The show is magical, and it makes you kind of feel magical while you're watching it.
Exactly, and plus, since we're on the topic of the opening, let's just talk about the music in general. Like, it's it's comfy, it's relaxing at times,
It's very whimsical.
and it's just yes, whimsical and magical, dare I say?
Wow, whimsy and magic going together. Who knew?
Ooh, fancy,
Indeed.
indubitably.
But yeah, it's just the music, and they do have a couple like original little pieces in there every now and then, like when they ride the water elemental to the island where the lintworm is. That there is an original piece of music in there. It's just a short little thing, but it exists.
Original music exists in the show, I swear.
I swear, you guys, look it up. I swear. Oh my god.
But no, I actually have the soundtrack on Spotify, and it is on Spotify to any of you Spotify users out there.
Oh, it's on the spoofy?
Yes, it's on the spoofy.
I will never not call it the spoofy.
Yes, Avi. I want to buy a spoofy T-shirt, but we're getting off topic with that.
until we start uploading the podcast on Spotify. Did you know you could catch us on Spoofy? But
Yes,
by the way, if you're listening to this at
Spoofy.
any time in the future after this has been uploaded, check the description. I may have uploaded it somewhere else, maybe to a SoundCloud or something, so that way you can listen to it somewhere else. But there you go. Check the description. I can't, as of recording this, guarantee you anything, but check. You never know.
There might be goodies. But no, yeah. Anyway, just the soundtrack. Like, I listen to it whenever I'm like doodling or just doing homework or stuff, or even script writing. It's just relaxing, and it's like, and when you watch the show, it's like it's not like one of those soundtracks where it's like, this doesn't fit or this song doesn't fit. No, it actually does fit. Like in the second episode, when like after like the giants accidentally smash Hilda's house, like, and they're all packing whatever they can out of the rubble and like driving away to go to Trollberg, like a song plays, and it's very like it kind of reminds me of Adventure Time a little bit. Come along with me, like that sort of like tone, like somberness in a way, and it's just relaxing, and it is kind of sad because, well, for one, their house got destroyed.
Stepped on by a giant,
So-
yeah, an old giant, too.
Exactly. And that's just Monday.
And that was just Monday.
But no, it's like very sad, and like you feel this emotion that's like a very powerful thing that music can do to people. And this soundtrack, it's just, yeah, feels.
Yeah, no, it definitely encapsulates the mood properly. When they say that music can improve or insinuate or like affect the way a show's mood should be, that's not how Hilda is at all. It actively enhances the mood that's being presented on the characters themselves.
Right.
Which the characters, they're not classic cartoon like emoting, but they're still very expressive. Like their eyebrows and their faces are still quite expressive for a cartoon show, because we've seen some
Right.
cartoon shows where they have like their faces will stretch out or like morph to become over exaggerated features, and then we've seen them where they barely move and their eyebrows don't move too much, and you know their faces are a bit stiff and they don't convey emotion that well. But in Hilda,
Right.
like most of the characters, like when they do an eyebrow thing, like their eye sinks down a little bit too, like your face would, and they do have good expressions. They do have relatable expressions that fit the music, and the music definitely does enhance what the characters are going through as well.
Right. And plus the music is what's the word where it's not like it's not interruptive. Or no, that's the wrong word to use. Like let's say a sad moment's happening, and like it's just a bad moment for a song to be like, "Oh, I'm sad every day," you know?
Yeah, it's not like blaringly obvious, like, hey, ding ding, it's time to be sad. Did you know what time it is? It's the sad time. You should be feeling sad.
Do you have your tissues, ice cream, and wine?
By the way, woot woot, the sad train is here.
Chugga chugga.
Chugga chugga boo hoo.
Oh my god.
Because it's the sad train. Yeah, because that's the kind of thing you were trying to talk about, right? Was that it doesn't like actively just be like, now's the time to be sad.
Right, and that's just a little small pet peeve of mine where like quietness is key, honestly. Like just let it sink in and then you can play the sad music, you know? Or whatever mood it is. That's just me though. Like to any of you out there who's like, oh, I'm fine with that. I like this. That's fine. It's just me being nitpicky.
Yeah, some people
just-
don't enjoy being told how to feel through the musical choices of the directors. Because it's true. There are some people who will actively get upset if they're enjoying a scene and then all of a sudden the music kicks up a little too early or a little too loud and starts instructing them on how they should feel during that moment. It will take some people completely out of their experience.
Huh.
I mean, I've watched some people
Okay.
on YouTube and such talk about like how if a music cue is completely wrong for a movie or they chose a bad song, it'll like take them out of the movement, out of the moment. Yeah, out of the movement. It's for a cow.
The movement?
Yeah, the movement. So it would take them out of the imminent moment and just sort of destroy that experience when they were otherwise enjoying what was happening on screen. So that is a real gripe to have with cartoons. Luckily, Hilda doesn't suffer from that.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, no, all of the sound design and everything, the artistic design, the sound design, everything about it is just, it's good. It's overall just good. I mean, like we were saying before, 98% Rotten Tomatoes, top tier. Once again, just going to throw down that top tier.
Also, the comedy is really good. We never talked about the comedy.
There are some funny parts in it, yeah. I mean, especially revolving around David, who is kind of the comedic relief of the group a little bit. You know, it's like, oh, David, you got a bug on you. Like, every time you got a bug on you, what is the whole bug on you thing? Is that a thing?
I think it's like a fear.
I mean, like, is that just? I mean, it happened so many times that I'm starting to think that there's something about David that attracts nature to him, because everything about nature in that show was kind of revolved around him. Even the, we were just talking about them. The root vegetable villains.
Vetra.
The Vetra, right? Yeah. As soon as you said it, I was right there. The Vetra, right? Even the Vetra, like, who decided to pull up all the Vetra? David. Who always has a bug on him? David. Who's always getting in trouble with, like, trolls? David. Everything that has to do with nature always seems to involve David.
I'm pretty sure. Hold on. Actually, I'm gonna do a little research this time. I'm gonna look up if there's like any like. No, mage is the wrong word. Mage is the traitor of witches. Fun fact for all you witchy nerds out there: warlock is actually not the term for a male witch. A witch can deviate from anyone. A man can be a witch, a woman can be a witch, a dog can be a witch, a cat can be a witch. But a warlock is always a bad witch. Remember that, kids.
A warlock's a jerk. He's a big old jerk. Big dirty jerk.
Yeah. Nature warlocks.
Nature warlocks? What did somebody curse David?
Know.
Is that what we're looking up here for? Did David get cursed by a nature warlock? Which would just be an evil druid.
True.
I mean, yeah, if it's, maybe David just has an attunement with nature that we haven't discovered yet. It could also just be like a gag. Maybe the creator knew a kid named David who always had a bug on him for some reason.
Yeah, and we're just looking way too deep into this.
Yeah, we're just, oh man, game theory. Somebody call MatPat. I've got a cartoon theory.
Right. No, not game theory. It's film theory.
Whatever, this is cartoon theory. It's better.
It's cartoon theory. Then there's music theory. And then there's theory.
Yeah, and then there's what happens if we theorize about a theory for too long. The world implodes. That's what happens. Your mind will not expand. It will literally implode upon itself.
It'll be like World of Light.
It'll be like the plot to Kingdom Hearts. Just don't.
Oh God, no.
Speaking of which, January 29th, no. Kingdom Hearts 3. Who's hype? Woo! I finished 2. I finished 2.5 and I finished 1, so I'm all caught up. Quotes. I had some experts fill me in on the stuff.
Plug. Go follow Beef's Twitch so you can see him play whatever.
Yep, I live stream over on Twitch and sometimes on YouTube here. Twitch.tv/whatbeef.
Mostly YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, not mostly YouTube. No, I'm over on Twitch all the time.
Are you sure about that? No, you.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm aware of when I stream on Twitch and when I stream on YouTube.
Are you sure you're aware?
I'm pretty sure I'm aware.
Yes, I am. I am me.
But am I really me? Either way, totally sidetracked. So what exactly were you looking up to for Hilda there? What were you trying to look up about David?
I was trying to look up the term for, like, not exactly a witch, but like a spellcaster of some kind that involves nature.
Druid?
I don't know. Probably druid.
Yeah, probably druid. I mean, you could have just asked. I would have had that on lock.
My bad. I forgot. You are into D&D incredibly.
I am into many things. I am what is called a dork.
Oh, yes. I too am a dork, except I am not a dork who is into D&D. I want to get into D&D, though.
I am a fully grown man who enjoys Dungeons & Dragons, cartoons, video games, and archery. If this sounds like a
Wow.
dating profile, well then whatever, it probably is somewhere.
Me, I'm just a gay robot.
I'm just a gay robot, that's cool.
Anyway, yeah, what were we talking about?
Well, we were
Just
talking about how David always had a bug on him, and then you went into the whole trying to find out what a druid was.
yeah, we're just looking too hard into this. It's just probably a gag. I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably like some kid he knew in high school or something, like we said, or in grade school that always had a bug on him. Who knows? There might
Right.
be something that will come up in a later session that's like, no, it actually meant this, but we'll leave that for Matt Pat. Matt Pat can do all that goodness.
Right. All of that and
But
a
yeah,
Diet Coke.
I believe you asked me the other day if you could write down a question. So what were the questions that you had?
My question is, well, first of all, did you enjoy the show?
We never actually asked that. No, I mean, yeah, I enjoyed the show quite a bit, hence why it's literally the first episode of Toon of a Kind, which, by the way, is a play on words, you see, of two of a kind. Not that I didn't explain that in the beginning, but I'm going to explain it again. Because I'm super proud of that wordplay. It's great. It's wonderful. It's on screen right now. It's been on screen for the last hour and 20 minutes.
I am proud too. That is a very clever name.
Thank you. I mean, I was just thinking of cool things that would be like easily searchable, have like a nice little catchphrase and whatnot. And for those of you who caught on in the beginning, I'm addressing the fans as Toonsters because that's what Buster Bunny called everybody in Tiny Toons when he would address the audience viewers at home. He'd call them Toonsters.
God, it's
So that's like
confirmed.
a little deep fact for all of you who've stuck with us for an hour and 20 minutes
God rest your
blathering
soul.
on
if you
about
have.
delicious cartoons.
Another question I had was, do you think if a season two was to happen, like, would you say it would have the same effect? Like, you sit down, watch the first episode, and you're like, oh, I am into this. I am greatly passionate about anything that comes from it. Would you say the same effect could happen if season two were to happen?
Yeah, I mean that's easy to say yes to because if as long as they have the same creative team and writing team and like voice cast and as long as nothing changes between season 1 and season 2, generally yes, the answer is always yes. Traditionally, what has happened before in cartoons is that the cast would change between seasons 3 and 4 or between seasons 2 and 3 depending on when the contracts would be up. And that's when you'd get the weird drastic changes for shows, when they would try and make it fresh or mix it up a bit by adding in new characters or a slightly different style or something that would happen. But since this is a Netflix original series, and I believe most of the creative control would be in the hands of the team, I believe that season 2 would have a very, very positive outlook. So, yeah, I am excited for it, and I doubt that I won't be any less excited after the first episode or two.
Basically what he said.
Basically, I'm going to copy paste that. That's my answer too.
Well, for me, instead, it would be more like, yeah, I am very excited for what the future of Hilda holds because I usually don't use Netflix like the avid Netflix binger usually does. Because for me, Netflix is just like I only use Netflix for 5 or 4 shows and occasionally a movie if I'm bored. Like I only use it for Stranger Things, Hilda, and I want to get into Black Mirror and something. What was it? Oh yeah, Haunting on Hell House.
Oh yeah,
That's
I've
pretty
heard
much
that was a decent series. Yeah, I've got She-Ra, the new She-Ra, on my list, and also I've been keeping up with the new Voltron. Which, by the way, for everyone viewing at home who's really enjoying the podcast and hoping that I add some more shows to the list, Voltron and She-Ra will be on the list. Don't you worry.
I mean, I'll definitely check them out, even though I'm not a fan of either shows. I'm talking about the podcast, by the way.
I kind of fell in love with the Voltron because I always liked the old Voltron when I was a kid, like giant lions coming together to make a derpy huge lion. But now that they added in like the bigger budget and like a better system and like a dynamic between the team and Allura and Lance and like all those characters, Pidge, like I like them. I like them all. I like the show. I like Voltron. All right, I like Voltron. It's great. It's a bunch of giant cats turning into other giant cats. A giant robot cat. It's great. Did I mention that these cats have cannons? The cats have like tail cannons. It's great.
The cats have cats, and those cats have cannons.
It's true. And then the fist becomes a cat fist, which also has a cannon. And then they can grab stuff with his cat mouth. It's dumb and I love it. We have the Voltron Funko Pops at my shop, and every time I'm like, I want to buy them so bad, but also I don't want more Funko Pops because the Overwatch ones are just taking over my life. There's too many Overwatch Funko Pops.
Yeah, I only have one Overwatch Funko Pop, believe it or not, and it's only Ivana, my main.
Yeah, I actually don't have Anna, I believe. It's one of the few I don't have. I actually got Ash the other day just because
lucky.
She's out now. Yeah. She was the only one I've ever seen in any of the stores. I'm like, oh, she's a thing now? I guess I'll buy her. But way off topic. This has nothing to do with Hilda. It's just more about Netflix and other shows. Getting people hyped for more stuff.
My bad.
No, that was also me too. We got to talk about a little bit of extra stuff, But yeah, so that's pretty much everything that's been going on with Hilda for me. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've covered almost everything to talk about with the show. Unless there's another question you have written down, or unless there's something else you wanted to touch on.
Well, I already touched on the witch theory, early on in the podcast, so don't have to do that.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is just the fact that I hope something comes back with Frida and the Mara, because she technically has, I don't want to say ingested, but she has been infused with that mystical energy that the Mara feed on. So I want to know whether or not that will come into play. And if it does mean that she's more likely going to become a Mara when she's a teenager, that's really cool, because I want to see sort of how that plays out when she's a kid, because I don't think we're going to get into when they turn into teenagers. At least maybe not for a few seasons down the line. But for now, I want to see the effects of what has happened between the Mara and Frida, because I want to see her kind of have to fight something on her own, because I don't just want David to be comic relief and be like, oh, I'm kind of misfortunate and I got bugs on me, and then Frida be like the uptight one who knows how to get all the badges, all the Sparrow Scout badges, which we barely touched on the Sparrow Scouts either way. The Sparrow Scouts are the group that the kids belong to that are basically like the Girl Guides or the Scouts.
Right. Not interesting. Move on.
Yeah, it's not really that interesting. Nothing much happens revolving around them besides the characters interacting with them and wearing the costumes every now and then. So,
right.
Which
but, yeah,
also,
like you were saying.
Small side note though, they actually do change costumes a bit in the show. When weather changes, they actually have like weather costumes. They go into their Sparrow Scouts outfits. When they go out at night, they have like different coats and stuff. So the costumes do change slightly.
Right, variety, and that's a great thing to have in a show.
Even just a little bit.
Right. Even though Hilda practically wears the same thing, but still, that's not important.
Yeah.
But that is very important to have. And like you were saying earlier, yeah, that would be very interesting. What I would think, since Frida is, connected with the Mara in a way, what I would like to see, and again, disclaimer, not going to be a possibility, not a theory, just a what if, it would be cool to see if, when she is a teenager, again, not a possibility, but it's
probably way too far off. Yeah.
Right. But she would be struggling as a Mara because, she's but a wee virgin flower in this world of terrorizing children in their sleep. But it's she would struggle. She would have. Did they ever give the one Mara a name? I forgot.
I don't remember if she had a name. No, I just know her as the Mara.
We're gonna call her what's a typical Cindy.
Just call her Mara. Let's just call her Mara.
Mara. Right,
the Mara, because there's also the blonde Mara, with the long blonde hair, who sort of recruited Frida. But yeah, I mean, I want to know if maybe they're going to pressure her to come back, or maybe she just has a draw to go back now, because maybe she's had that energy in her, and she's kind of like, I don't feel right without going back, and then they'll try and train her as a Mara, and that's a thing that they have to overcome as a friend group. And then that would be playing into the addiction kind of thing that you were talking about earlier, how they mentioned that it's an allegory for addiction, or it's just an allegory for, losing your friends and then falling under peer pressure because somebody who you thought was cooler came along, scooped you up into a group, and you come to realize that that group's actually just a piece of garbage.
Right. And that's another great thing about the show, too. But also, or another possibility is maybe she is like vampiric in a way. Like she has Mara intentions. It's almost like I don't know what the show touches on this subject, but it would be like
Well, there's been a lot of shows that have done that, right? That have done the thing of like one of the characters has become tainted or cursed and now is sort of struggling with the darkness inside of them. It's a very big trope in a lot of shows, but it would be interesting how it became to be and the way it plays out, if it does, in fact, even play out. Once again, we could be reading way too hard into this. Maybe the cure is David's bugs.
Right. But no, what I was trying to say was like maybe she has like Mara intentions and like she wants to like give children nightmares, but at the same time she just wants to be a little Sparrow Scout. She just wants to be perfect.
Yeah, by day Sparrow Scout, by night nightmarish freak.
Right. It would be like the situation where she thought there was a ghost in her room but not like ass backwards the way it was, where she like, oh, I thought rooms cleaned themselves, like, but no, like actual tension when she would call David and Hilda.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
I was about to say, we're almost at the 1 hour and a half mark, so I was about to say we're pretty much exhausted everything we can talk about Hilda, so I guess it's now just sort of the closing deal. So thank you for joining me, Z, on the first episode of Toon of a Kind. And hopefully we'll have you on again for a few other shows, because I know there's the list that I gave you, and you were excited for a couple of those. So until then, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at SleepZe. You can find me on YouTube, SleepZe, where I will be doing my own little show called The Horror Holic, where I will hopefully have beef on there one of these days, where I'm not going to tell you the topic because that's going to be a secret.
Wow, it's not like they could probably already figure out what the topic was just by looking at the theme of my channel.
You can also... Actually, no, that's it. Just Twitter and YouTube.
No Twitch? You're not on any other platforms?
Nope.
And did you get your Twitch handle, or did you get your Twitter handle all fixed? So it's no longer... Yeah, okay, good, because it used to have a lot of numbers and... Oh man, that was a nightmare to try and figure out. I'm glad he fixed that. It's wonderful.
I got that figured out.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, and for everyone else who's here, thank you for joining us. If you would like more episodes of Toon of a Kind, please go ahead, subscribe down below, hit like on the episode, go subscribe to the wonderful SleepZe over on his channel, follow on Twitter, follow me on Twitter as well so you can get updates on when the next episode's going to be and what it's going to be on. Feel free to also put suggestions down below. I am going to ask that you only do more current cartoon suggestions, please. I am from Canada. I am from the frozen land of Canada, so I don't get a lot of the American cartoons that come out. So anything that's been released within the last 5 years, I'd say, is fair game. I do have plans to extend the show into a retro format at some point, but this show is kind of also an excuse for me to get reunited with my love of cartoons and start watching newer cartoons that I maybe have put to the wayside a little too much, because sometimes you just get a list so big that it becomes daunting to go through. So if you want to see your favorite show on the podcast, drop it down below and I'll be sure to add it to the list. But until next time, thank you all for joining us here on the Toon of a Kind podcast, and I wish you all well.
Bye-bye-bye.
Take care, Toonsters.